How's it going, team? Welcome back to another episode of the Average Jacks podcast, where we dive into fitness, life, and everything in between. I'm your host, Jack McKinnon, and today we have a special treat in store for you. Joining us is my good friend and renowned online coach, John Cunningham. But before we jump into our conversation, a quick shout out to our amazing sponsor, Vidaba Strength. They offer top tier apparel and fitness gear to help you reach peak performance. And guess what? As a loyal listener, you can get yourself 20% off your order with the code AverageJack. Just head over to www.vidabastrength.co.uk and use the code at checkout, which will be down below. And also, don't forget to check out my website to find out everything you need to know about me and my personal journey at www.jackmckeenan.co.uk. There, you can find out more about the podcast, some tips and exclusive content, and access to my weekly newsletter, The Queue. Now, without further ado, let's dive into today's episode with John Cunningham.
Busy as ever.
You're a busy man. We're both busy men.
I'm looking forward to this. I've never really been a guest before. I'm
shitting myself.
Are you?
Yeah, I'm dead. I like you. You were the one that I've wanted to do sort of for ages. Not blowing smoke up your ass, but I'm this one.
I do feel when you host a podcast, there's more pressure. So I'm nervous when I host. But now I'm like just speaking to a mate. So this is like the most relaxed. Like I literally came off a meeting 6 minutes ago, just had a bowl of porridge, got a meeting in an hour, and it's kind of like, oh yeah, this will be great. Like there's no, like, I don't know. No, because I listened to a few of your podcasts so far, and from my own experience, I know a few guests are like, oh, I'm pretty nervous. But because I know you so well, and we speak so often, I'm like, this is going to be just an insight into what we normally talk about, which I don't know whether that's going to be a good thing or a bad thing.
Yeah, that was what I was thinking. So normally, obviously, you've given me a lot of sort of insight and, you know, tools and tips to doing podcasts. And I've been prepping for most of the guests, and I just sat down and sort of tried to prep for you, and I found it strangely difficult. Like, not just, it felt weird, like prepping a conversation for you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because even I was like, what are we going to talk about? Because we've talked about email marketing, we've talked about training, we've talked about nutrition, we've talked about philosophy, we've talked about, so we've got such a broad scope to go by. I've done no prep, I've done no nothing. And I know you said, oh, I'll send you some bits over. And obviously we just couldn't have time to connect before this. So it's kind of like, let's just see how we go here. But I did a podcast yesterday, and I've been to and fro in from my own hosting, being like, what type of podcast host am I? Am I the kind of, I've got my notes down the side, I'm trying to stick to that as much as possible, or I'm an off the cuff person? I know for my earlier podcasts, I was definitely just more off the cuff. I was just, let's just see where it goes and head in this direction. And then as I got more, I'd say, more well-known people. So, for example, Sam Spinelli, who's got like 500,000 followers and one of the best sports therapists. I was like shitting myself. I'm like, I'm too dumb to be in this conversation. I'm going to prep so much here. And I was quite nervous for that one. And then like CEO of RP Strength, Nick Shaw, super nice guy. Again, dead nervous. This guy's like a multi-millionaire mid RP. And I'm like, can you be on my podcast, please?
Like Oliver Twist with the ball, mate. Just like, please, sir. Please.
Mate, that's literally what I'm like. And like, some people come back to me. Some people have come back to me and said, all right, how many views do you get? How many listens do you get? That's happened once before. Most people are like, yeah, no problem. Like, send me the link. I'm on. And I know we spoke about this before in terms of your podcast and whatnot. And you get that little bit of self-doubt and be like, oh, should I do this? Should I send DM? And then I've heard it. I think I've heard it from Chris Williamson. I'm a big fan of his podcast. Like, just send a DM, and a lot of people love to chat, love to connect, especially if they're in the realm of they like to put information out there. It's just another platform to put them to put their information out there and what they think as well. So a lot of people do say, yeah. I mean, some people are busy and say no, but yeah, it's a
Yeah,
wild ride. How are you finding it?
yeah, good, mate, good. Obviously, you was one of the few people that listened to my solo podcast the other day, and I sort of jumped into that. Not that well received.
Really?
Yeah, like dead low, but it is what it is. It was sort of there for me to, as I said in that podcast, hold myself to my own standards and expectations. But mate, that was so cathartic. I know you do your own solo ones and individual ones, and just to sort of get the chaos of my brain out of my brain. It was like journaling, but obviously to a camera and to myself. So I went into that. I watched it back, and I think knowing myself, and probably I don't know if you picked up on this because you know me quite well, that I felt quite tense and stressed initially. I probably came across that way because I was frustrated that I'd missed a week. And as I got through it, I could just feel myself, like lightening up, becoming more of myself, and just having that sort of that pressure just going away. It was so insane. But yeah, man, the journey's been different. It's been sort of going to the nerves and things like that. I'm naturally a good talker. I can pretty hold a conversation with most people. I'd like to think anyway. But it's the prep. It's sort of, you know, yesterday was the first time that I'd done one with someone that I hadn't met before, and that was good. I wasn't as nervous for that one as I have been with people that I know, which is bizarre. And I think it's because you don't really want to come across as, I don't know, you don't really want to come across as like, oh, this is just, shit talking, blah 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 blah. I want to provide sort of value and content and that, but also you've got to have that sort of relaxed thing as well, because it is an insight into a conversation, isn't it? At the end of the day.
Mate, what was the small talk like before you press record? That's what always gets me. Like
Oh,
the very first time you speak to someone.
yeah. So it was sort of we kind of had a bit of a back and forth on Instagram, so we sort of knew where we was at. And I pressed record on Riverside, and it just obviously that fucking countdown came on the screen. She was like, "What the fuck's this?" And I was like, "Oh, just ignore that." That was just us getting into it. So that was sort of an icebreaker of the fact that we're off, we're going, and it was good, mate. I think small talks were my strong suits.
That's the thing, when I do it, I always press record as soon as I'm on, like the host.
Yeah,
Because then when I did that at the start and that 3, 2, 1 came on board, then it felt like an artificial conversation. It felt like a fake conversation almost. While if
yeah,
we press record right at the start, have a bit of small talk back and forth, and kind of roll into a conversation, we're kind of like this one. Like you've just done exactly what. Whether you're going to include this in the small talk at the start or not in a podcast, it's yeah. I just find it like kind of lightens the mood a lot because someone's not seeing that countdown timer go down, and then they don't focus on that red dot in front of you, be like, oh no, I'm on camera here, because we're just having a regular conversation.
yeah. And I think one thing for me is something that I wanted to ask you about is doing this through Riverside, because obviously not in a fortunate position as of yet to have something like a studio. But I have been sort of lucky enough to do two in person. And how do you sort of navigate that, or do you even get this where you sort of enthralled in this conversation, you're like balls deep in it, and you're like this back and forth with someone, then you do catch that red dot or yourself in the corner, and you're like, shit, this is recorded, because when I did it in person, you just don't have that. You just really don't have it. It's just not there. And for me, I'm now sort of cautious that I'm like my eyes aren't in the right place, or I'm looking at the wrong thing. Do you get that?
If I'm really into the conversation and it's a bit of back and forth, like I don't get that much. But then if I look at my notes or distract myself somehow, then I'm like, oh, I'm aware of my surroundings. Oh, I haven't listened to what they've just said. Oh no, take part in this. Do I need to say something? So yeah, if I distract myself, definitely, I'm a bit like, oh no, like, is this going well? All that sort of stuff. But the more you can, I mean, everyone's heard of that like flow state before. The more you
Mm.
can tap into that, however you can tap into, I think the better the quality of the conversation is going forth. I mean, the nerves is really in the anticipation. Just anxiety comes from something that hasn't happened yet when it comes to podcasting. And you build this up into like, oh, I'm speaking to someone who's really smart. I'm speaking to someone who's really successful. And they've agreed to come on your podcast, and a lot of them, everyone I've spoke to is very good natured, and they don't want it to go shit
Yeah.
because they can't publish what we want to publish. They can't have a great conversation. So they come, they're like, yeah, I'm good to go. And they want it to go well. And also what really helps me is that I'm not the main character in this conversation. I am
Yeah.
literally just here to kind of facilitate where this goes. And if you can speak as much as possible, that's absolutely fantastic. I mean, within reason, we're going to go back and
Yeah.
forth in some instances, but Riverside's really cool because then at the bottom, you know, when you kind of upload it and you see who's talked at the bottom, it's got
Yeah.
different colors, hasn't it? And if I
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
see like this guest has spoke for a long time, I was like, oh, that's great. That's absolutely fantastic. We're getting a lot of information out of this guest. We might go a bit back and forth from time to time. And if it can just be that natural flowing conversation, I think, all right, this has been pretty good. This has been a pretty good job here. But yeah, if you distract yourself and take you away from where you are, like just be present. We've all talked about that before, like being present. If you're present, if you're enjoying it and you know they're good natured and you know you're not the main part of the story, like you are definitely a second character in this, then just have a good time. And plus, I got this from Chris Williamson as well. If you're shit, no one's listening. So no one cares whether you've messed up because no one's listening to you. And I've had podcasts that you mentioned before about your solo podcast not doing very well. Mate, these I'm super transparent with stuff like this. Like they're all worse by a mile. Like just me rambling. Like no one cares. No one cares what I've got to say. But for me, it's just practice. Like I see everything as practice, and like we might even get as low as like I'm not afraid to say like 5 views on a solo podcast. But I'm like that was more for me because that was me learning what I'm going to go through. So, for example, we might talk about like carbohydrate during exercise, and I made a bunch of notes. I'm going to talk about those notes, and for me, it's just practice speaking because eventually, I got no idea where this podcast is going to go. I've got no plans on stopping, but don't really have a game plan to be like I'm going to be Joe Rogan or Chris Williamson. Honestly, it's just a selfish thing for me. We've all heard of the best way to learn something is to teach something. So if I can speak into a mic about this topic, I know I've learned it. I mean, I know I can be a better coach. And then this podcast was just born from, I've got a really horrible relationship with progress.
Yeah.
As in like, I just need to make progress in something. And I hate feeling stagnant. It probably comes from a huge, deep insecurity. But by me sending a DM to Sam Spinelli, sending a DM to Nick Shaw, and I get to talk to these like incredibly talented people. It's like it gives me an insight into their knowledge, into their world, and if I can just take a little bit from that, it's like, oh, I've got my progress here. I've got a little bit better here, and like anything, most people do really well from stuff, especially at the start, because it's massive insecurities in life. And I'm just doing this because I've got an unhealthy relationship with making progress. So I'm just going to make progress in this aspect. Yeah, it's been a wild ride. I enjoyed it though. I looked at my feed the other day. 2 years I've gone for. 2 years, and I'm on episode 212 today.
That's incredible, Matt. Like, I remember you saying to me when we did episode 1, which was 10 episodes ago, for me, like, to just say, like, this will be episode 11 is just mental. It's just saying, like, because I remember you saying to me that, isn't it, there's a stat that most podcasts never reach past episode 3 or something like that.
Mate, I think it was Chris Williamson again. I get a lot of inspiration from Chris Williamson because, I mean, my wife's like, oh, you bum him. I'm like, yes, I do. Because he's just a bloke from Newcastle who decided to do this thing and just didn't stop. And it's just got better and better and better. So he's got a load of insights into what I want to do. And I think he said something like 80% of podcasts don't make it past episode 3. And of those podcasts that do, like another 80% don't make it past episode 25. So by doing 25 podcasts, you're literally in the top percentile of podcasts. Now, I did not believe that at all, but wait until the end of the year, especially for your one, and you get that Spotify Wrapped, and it's true. Like, the results come back, and I screenshotted it every year. Like, I screenshot what year one was like, what year two was like. Spotify comes back and be like, you're in the top 5% of fitness podcasts in the world.
Well,
I was like,
and then,
what? Really? Me with my 5 views on my singular podcast, my solo podcast. I know it's good that the guest one goes a little bit better, but like I think most things you can get good at by just not stopping. It's just a race to not stop. Like
just
wherever
reps in
you,
it.
it's just reps, it's just practice, it's just getting better. Like not afraid of like failing or anything like that, and just give it a go and just do not stop. But it goes for anything. It goes for fitness and training, and I learned that pretty early. Then I'm trying to make this business, and Built Strong's been going now for 5 years. I didn't realize that, and it was shit at the start. It was shit in year two, and it's got a little bit better as we go. I probably look back at it and be like, "Nah, year 5 was pretty shite as well," but just by not stopping and searching for progress, it kind of just stays where it is and gets a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better. And I remember my good friend who owns Steel Habitat, great friend, guy, worked in his gym right at the start. We still speak all the time now. I look up to him when it comes to the business world. And I used to ask him like stuff about, it's got to be a thing for like posting on social media or email marketing or like customer service. And he was just like, what would you say to like a nutrition or a client or athlete trying to find that? They're like, it takes time. Just do the basics really well. He goes, you've just answered your own question. It's like, don't get distracted at these little, like, people get distracted like, I haven't got the right hashtag. And like, it's not really the basics when it comes to business and building a business and all that sort of stuff. Like, just make a great product. Tell people about that great product. Redo the great product so it gets better. Get better at telling people about the product. And
Value is everything, isn't it?
And it's just doing that constantly, reiterating it constantly. And we've done that tons. The first program we did came from me not having a job or an income. So I was like, I'm just going to make this thing called Built Strong. I didn't even make up the name. Mike told me. So I'm just going to use it. And I used to charge people £19 for everything. Nutrition, menus, calories, macros, check-ins, full training program, individualized to you, get on a Skype call, talk about that sort of stuff, and mate, wild. So like again, grinding, still grinding now, pretty unsuccessfully, but
nah, man, honestly, like I'm not even like sucking you off here. I like probably nervous because sort of you're a big inspiration of mine, and you obviously like help me a lot with everything I do. And we're very similar in the way that probably why we get on so well is our relationship with ourselves and the standards that we set ourselves. We're probably, I said this again, I am 100% my biggest critic, and I think that is a positive thing, majoritively, but I also think it can be a bad thing. And sort of how do you progress is so important, and not becoming stagnant is always key to developing. But sometimes I know I can be too harsh on myself and probably create unnecessary negativity in something that I'm doing. How do you rein that in if that happens to you? Like, do you sort of have to step back sometimes and think, I'm being a fucking cunt to myself here? I'm actually doing pretty sick.
Mate, that can't be a serious conversation, that. Mate, I am the worst when it comes to giving myself praise. Like, I can't answer that. Like, literally don't have a clue. Like, if obviously people might be listening to this and be like, Jack interviews people who got their shit together, who seem successful on the outside. Mate, I'm chaos. Like, a rambling person on a podcast and tries to get by. No, mate, I've got a terrible relationship with myself in terms of progress and giving myself praise and anything that pats me on the back and be like, I did all right. And if it does happen, it doesn't last very long. So, for example, it comes from just deep inadequacies. So, for example, I lived in Australia for a little bit, and I started this online thing called Built Strong. And after a few years there, we started to come back. Well, we came back to the UK, and I just thought I was underqualified. I was like, I'm just not smart enough for what I want to do. But in mind, I've already been a coach at this point for like a decade almost. So like, all right, I'll just do a master's degree. So I was like, oh, I'll just do a master's degree. And so I went to Chester University and did physiology and sports nutrition as a master's degree. And that's when I met you at Battaglia. I did that, and that was probably one of the hardest points of my life in terms of I was trying to build this income and do a full-time master's degree during COVID. And I remember halfway through that year, I actually contacted my, I don't know, not tutor, but whoever's like in charge you report to. I was like, listen, I'm like burying myself here. Could I split my degree and make it over 2 years? And they were like, no, you can't, because it says when you sign up and in the contract or whatever it is, student handbook, don't participate in full-time work when you're doing a full-time degree. I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. That like, don't do both at the same time. And I was just like burying myself in hours worth of like lectures, like assignments, trying to build Strong. I think at that point, Tommy was just on board as well. So we hired a second coach for Built Strong as well. And I remember finishing that degree, got my certificate in the post. I opened it by myself, looked at it, and just put it down. Didn't even go to graduation.
Did you not feel sort of any?
No. I was like, no. I was like, oh, okay, that's done. It's kind of cool. I get to say I've got a master's degree now. And then I was like, oh, like, I feel better once I've done this. I got it. I was like, it feels a little bit better. But no one's ever asked me what degree I've got. Ever.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It was for my own thing. And it opened a few good doors and whatnot. I got like a good internship from it and whatnot as well. But other than that, nothing really. I mean, I finished that and I remember applying for PhDs straight away. I was like, fucking going to be a doctor now. And I actually applied for two, one at Chester and one at, I think it was John Moore's. John Moore's didn't get back to me, and Chester got back to me and was like, oh, we haven't got room. Like, your supervisor just hasn't got room for you. So then I kind of like finished that. But to answer the original question, mate, now I'm still trying to figure that out. That balance of going easy on myself and not, I don't know, because I'm not very bad. I don't condemn myself, but I just don't praise myself. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm not there being like, I'm not like, oh, I'm not dwelling and be like, this was shit, I'm never going to do that. I look back at it and be like, critical, this could be better. I could have executed this better. From this, I'll now change this next time I do it. It's more that thought process rather than actual beating myself up. Because I think if I beat myself up, I wouldn't do it again. I'll tell you another story as well. So we did a launch for this bench press program like 3 years ago. And I was like, I've nailed this online launch. It's going to be fantastic. We're going to get loads of people on the bench press program. It's going to be really, really good. And we did this 3-week launch, built it all out, email marketing, social posts, social like praise, whatnot, all that kind of thing. And then we had launch date. And I remember waking up because I was like, oh, I'll do it on Sunday night, schedule a post for early. So it's up, so I'll have signups. And then I opened my email, nothing. No one signed up. I was like, surely not. I went on Typeform to see how many people opened the page. And yeah, people opened the page, but no one clicked submit. And then we had an open period for like Monday through to Friday, kept on posting that week. And it closed on Friday. And no one signed up. Not one person signed up for our launch. And I was like, what did I do wrong for that to happen? And it could have been anything. It could have been, because we've still got a very small like social media following, tiny. Could that have got bigger so we have more eyeballs? Did I deliver an actual good product? Did I advertise that? And this was obviously a few years ago, so I can't remember the specifics, but I just remember like writing down like stuff I could have done better. It was like, all right, I'll do it again. So then I remember we kind of did that a few times, and then we launched our new programs, I think maybe 2 years ago, and we called them terrible names as well. It was like Get Yoked, like really gimmicky names, I think it was. Anyway, long story short, we had like 35 signups day one. I was like, oh, wow, that worked. But then if I beat myself up too much and was like, oh, I'm never going to do that again, then that wouldn't have happened later down the year or a year or so later, where I did everything right. I learned from it again and actually got a good result this time. But then I still look back and be like, well, I could have changed this, could have changed that. Like, what was actually the onboarding like for the clients? Could that have gone a little bit smoother? And kind of reiterating all that over and over again to tweak it. And I don't think it'll ever be a finished product. And I'm glad I don't beat myself up to the point where I'm not afraid to do it again. Because, like, I'm not afraid of failing. I would say I'm not very good at telling people what I'm good at, but I know I'm very good at sticking to something just because I've got evidence of doing it. Like,
Burn the boats.
I've just trained for like 20 odd years nonstop to the point where it's like ingrained in me. Like, again, probably a deep rooted insecurity of being too small as a kid. So now I just like smash weights for like the
And
last
now
2
you're
decades.
a fucking yoked Viking.
I literally look at my staff and be like, like 2 decades of lifting and I look like this. Like, I look like mashed potato. But then the same as a business, like I just like a deep insecurity for progress, and I'm pretty good at not stopping something. So like the only reason I want to do in fact, we actually did a podcast at Steel Habitat probably about 8 years ago, and we did it only for like 6 months or something like that. Well, it might not even been that long, and we kind of realized it was distracting us from what we wanted to do as building the gym. So went away, but ever since then, I was like, oh, I want to do a podcast. I think I'll be pretty all right at this. And I just like to gain knowledge from other people. I don't like to speak to smart people. But I didn't start it until I knew I could commit to it. And I knew it could be good. And same as our conversation a few weeks ago where you're like, oh no, I missed an episode and whatnot. That's another learning opportunity. It'd be like, all right, what needed to happen for that not to happen? It's like, well, I needed to probably be a bit more organized in my booking in schedules. I probably need to send more DMs, each week to potential guests and get that in. It's just another learning opportunity. So as long as you keep on learning, keep sticking to it, it's like it eventually pay off. But also, have you heard of a Stockdale paradox?
No, but I'm all here for it.
So the Stockdale paradox, I'm going to misquote this, is one of my favorite paradoxes in terms of you've got complete faith in terms of where you're going to go, but you're also completely open that it could be sabotaged and taken away from it any moment. It's kind of like we're going to be positive here and we're not going to go in this direction, but we're also so open to the boat sinking and it will be taken away. And you know you're going to do a little bit of hard work. And I really like that because then it's kind of like anything. It's like, yes, we want to be positive, we want to head in this direction, but we can't just be airy fairy, the secret, and wish it to existence. It could just burn away. And I'm very aware, I'm probably okay with, you could try so hard at something and not succeed. And that's all right.
Yeah, we've talked about this a lot, haven't we? Of sort of, I always use this analogy because I love this analogy of like the drop of water on the rock may not break the rock off after a year, but eventually that one drop will cut that rock in half. And it's just all about staying around until it eventually does it. But it's having that confidence and stubbornness, which I think we both have from sort of listening to what you're saying there. I can relate to a lot of that. To just be like, I'm going to fucking prove you wrong or myself wrong, and I'm going to stick with it until, you know, the progress is there, something is there. Because something I've realised, sort of my own personal journey which is where this has come from, is that, you know, you can put a weight on the bar that you want to lift, you can put a target weight on the scale, or, you know, you can get the job. But once you get there, you realise there's always something else. There's always something else you want. It's just, you've got to embrace the journey rather than the destination, because that's the shit what, you know, keeps you going every day, keeps you inspired, and that's the shit you look back on. You know, like when I was weightlifting, yeah, I remember the good lifts and stuff like that, but I was like, God, I remember like the good sessions and the bad sessions and stuff. Like I remember more of what got me there than the actual event itself, if that makes sense.
Yeah, mate, that makes sense. It's it's a tough one because sometimes I have to remember to have fun along the way. And like, I'm not a perfect person by any stretch of imagination, and I've got hobbies I want to do, I've got life I want to do, and I'm guilty of, oh, I've got to work, I've got to work hard, I've got to do this. And there's probably an unhealthy relationship with it, and it's probably, I don't know, a deep-rooted learning of, well, this is what I've witnessed as a kid, this is what I've witnessed works well for me, I've maybe got some recognition from this, I'm going to double down on this, and kind of spirals in that direction to the point where sometimes like, oh, I've got to remember to have fun here. And that's a tough one, do you know what I mean? Like, I mean, you've got to first of all, define what fun is for you. And what that looks like and what winning looks like to you. Like for some people, that's like a live in Dubai, be flashy, like
Yeah.
being an online coach like that. Like that's just never going to be me. Like you can hit me with a dumbbell over the head if you ever catch me in Dubai, like working on my laptop. But then it's kind of defining what will make you happiest and what is winning to you. And that looks probably different for so many people. But it's probably important. I'm guilty of this as well, of taking time out, or not guilty of this, of taking time out and defining what that success looks like to you, because it's so easy just to go through the motions and just kind of get stuck in this rat race of, well, this is what I've got to do, I've got to grind away, I've got to do this. And if you don't define what winning or success looks like or happiness looks like for you, it's like, well, how do you know you're going to get there, or have you got it already? If we just go through in this kind of non-reflective life and not take time to reflect on who we are, what we want to be, and where we want to go. And sometimes that's really, really hard, but that's something I'm trying to work on as much as possible. It's having a bit more of a reflective piece with my life, whether that's within a week, within a quarter, anything like that. But like, where do I want to go here? And can't give anyone any answers in terms of how you do that. That's just something I'm trying to do and trying to get better at.
So you mentioned before when you were saying about the initial launch, I think, of the bench program, or one of the programs, and you said you sat there and wrote what you could do better. Is that like just a habit that's instilled to you to just sort of, it's journaling to a degree, isn't it? Of just sort of, but it's like bullet pointing. That's sort of the journaling that I do. I do try and gratitude journal to do what you're saying, sort of reflect on the fact that, you know, again, I'm probably guilty of beating myself up. I probably praise myself, but I'm also on the other end of that spectrum as well. You know, I'm not constructive with myself a lot. I'm like, fucking shit, why do I bother? Blah, 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 blah. And then like the angel on the shoulder's like, nah, you've got this, that was decent. So like for me, gratitude journaling has been something that helps with that, but I find just writing stuff down and sort of getting goals on there and what could be better was a game changer. Is that what you're doing when you mentioned that before? Is it sort of just getting your internal thoughts out on paper?
Almost, but mine's definitely from like a business point of view rather than like a gratitude journal. So I've never gratitude journaled in my life, like never done it. I've never taken a book out and wrote down my feelings ever. And like I saying that, I sound exactly like my dad. Like my dad's turned around to me before and was like, depression's not real. I was like, oh, I don't think you can say that.
I think there might be some conclusive evidence that
that's not real. But like, he's like high 60s, do you know what I mean? Like spitting sawdust, works every hour he can get, and just witnessed hard work for him and didn't really have like see emotion at all. So from a gratitude point of view, my reflections I find business so interesting, and not even business. I find anything so interesting because I used to do this when I played rugby as well. I was like, what could I have done better there? And just ask my question that. And this is not, I don't write it down at all. Often it's just like going through my thoughts. So in order for me to do that, I need to have like free time. So I've noticed if I'm swamped in work and putting out fires, I can't do that. But if I go I love my hiking. If I go on a walk, if I lift weights with no music, like I put my headphones in sometimes and don't play anything. Like
I like
psychopath on that.
You
And I
sending
do
that
it,
cue out to people like
mate.
fucking back
Yeah,
off.
I do it. Sometimes I do work with my headphones on and don't have any sound on, just because I don't want to speak to people. How
Love that.
psychotic is this, mate? I do 20 rep squats with no music on, just put my headphones
That
in,
is
and
psychotic.
just fucking love pain. Anyway,
Just yeah, man, honestly, I can relate to everything you've just said there. But that 20 rep fucking squat and not having any sort of like, I remember once, and like I'm being such a hypocrite here because I'm always banging on about like we're not the one percenters and shit like that. But I do take motivation from these people. I just this is so fucking embarrassing. I did the 20 squats, and when I was on program with you. And I remember, like, I just need something here. I just need, like, lighter fuel in my ears. And I just put, Goggins when he does the bench press.
oh yeah,
And just, like,
yeah.
21! I'm just, like, just putting that on loop, there. And I'm just going to fucking imagine that this is me suffering. And anyone who's never done a 20 rep max squat, do it. Do it and just understand the pain of what you're saying you're putting yourself through with no sort of external motivation, which is incredible. And psychotic.
Yeah, I mean, it's a biblical experience. Like it is probably one of the hardest. Like for a 90-second duration of exercise, it's probably one of the hardest psychological things that I've done. Like people do Ironmans and ultras, but that pain spread out over like 9 hours or whatever it is, and a superb achievement, a great achievement. And I'm probably not comparing like a 20 rep squat to an Ironman here. Like this, obviously, the Ironman's well harder. But for that 90 second, when you've got like 2 times your body weight nearly on you, and just don't let go of the barbell. Just
Yeah.
don't let go. And
Like every urge of what is hurting, which is everything, and stay with it.
yeah, stick with it. I mean, don't get me wrong, guys. It's a terrible training exercise. Like, it's one set taken to failure. The fatigue is absolutely massive. Stimulus is massive, but the fatigue is massive as well. So that ratio is all wrong. You're doing one productive set, and then you're fucked for the rest of the session. I remember one of the first time I've done it. We're getting back to the original question, which I definitely forgot what the original question was.
This is what we're here for.
The first time I did it, I was like, I'm going to do it first because I know it's going to be hard today. I literally got into the gym, warmed up, did 20 reps, lay down for 10 minutes and went home. I was like, I can't even do anything else. I'm fucking done here. Yeah, I try and do it once a year because from then, even though it's like, it's for muscle building, for one set, fantastic. But muscle's not built off one set per week, is it? It's built off multiple sets and higher volume work. So it's probably not the best thing to do. But once a year I do it because I think it just gives me a really good base to build. And I've always done a heavy squat off the back end of that. The only time I haven't done that is recently because I was so fucked. My hips and back were like, you're shutting this down. Like after I haven't squatted for like last 4 weeks because I got like knee tendonitis and my backs and hips are fucked. So yeah, trying to deal with that really. So I'm just an idiot really. So trying to get through.
I remember on the squat program with you reading. I don't know if you remember this, but you programmed 10 sets of 2 reps at like 98%.
I remember exactly what you're going to say.
And I remember, I don't even think I put it on the coach, and I think I messaged you personally. I was like, you're a fucking sociopath, mate. Why did you do that to me? And you're like, what? I was like, I've just done 2 sets, 10 reps, 98% of my 1 rep max, and I thought I was going to die. And you was like, mate, just go and read that again.
Yeah. Hey, yeah, like 2 sets of 10 at 90%, that's fucking wild. Like 10 sets of 2 at 90%, I'm like, okay, you could do that. Because even when you came back to me and said, oh, you're a bad man here, I was like, well, 10 sets is tough. And you were like, what do you mean 10 sets is tough? It's 2 sets, mate? I'm like, oh, read that, mate.
But it's amazing what your mind can do. If you just like, right, because that's what I need. I need accountability so much. and sort of I need someone to be like, this is what you're doing, this is what it's gonna look like, shoo, and come back when it's done. And I was like, right, he's fucking programmed it, he set me this challenge, I'm gonna fucking do it. I remember like bursting capillaries, like, because I do that just easily. And Nick was like, what's happened to you? I was like, I've just been squatting.
It's yeah, mate. It's an absolute wild ride on that thing. You should have said you need the accountability on that side of things. How do you find no accountability for your podcast then? Because no one's keeping you accountable to this. This is just you self-managing yourself to get one out.
Yeah, that's something that I've been working on myself, of being sort of the captain of my own ship and not using external factors to sort of hold myself accountable. So with this, I found that it's definitely a passion project, and sort of I don't really need a lot of persuasion to do it, if that makes sense. It's just something that I'm eager to do. And I was sort of worried at the beginning that it would fade, as most things do. I mean, there's still a potential of that, but I think we talked about it when you did episode 1 and sort of interviewed me. And I think a big, fucking people would be bored with me talking about this, you know me, but a massive event in my life was what happened in the fire, and realising that you can do everything right. You can sort of push yourself and prepare for it, but something that is completely at your power can just fuck you over. And the way I reacted to that was pretty poor. Was sort of went in my shell, sort of regressed in all the progress I'd made with my training, my well-being and stuff like that. And then I just sort of one day was like, I've let this slip, and the only person that's let this slip is me. So I need to fucking pick me up and be more sort of in charge of what I do, not look at other people to sort of pull me along. But I think a lot of that is from playing team sports. I'm not sort of passing that blame, but I think when you find gyms like Battalia and the gyms that I go to now in Unity and places like that, and then playing for teams, you're naturally accountable to them people, I find. And I think I don't know how you feel about this, you've played rugby at a higher standard than me, but I've just always been sort of that team player mentality of, yeah, there's someone else who needs me, or sort of I'll do it for them. But I've realised probably a little too late in life that I should be doing it mainly for me rather than anybody else.
You get different types of motivation, don't you? So
100%.
You get external, you get internal, and I think there's actually a quiz you can do online. It's like 4 different types and whatnot. But I think it's so powerful to find out what does motivate you, because then you can use it as a tool. And again, it probably comes back to that self-reflection piece of, if you have that little bit of self-reflection and you find out what does motivate you, like motivation, everyone will feel at some point. Everyone, whatever it might be to get a chocolate bar, it might be go to the gym, but everyone at some point will feel motivated to do so. And if you know what type of personality you are that gets you going, use that as much as possible. So for example, we do online coaching, and online coaching is not for everyone, because you have to be so internally motivated, because it's so easy to ignore your phone and be like, oh, I don't need to go to the gym. While those people will definitely suit an in-person personal trainer who they've got to meet at a place at a time, or a gym class such as Unity. I mean, you rave about Unity in terms of what the atmosphere is like, what the coaching is like, what the environment is like. So if you know, all right, I'm externally motivated by the team, the people around me, go to a fantastic gym and use that and sign up for classes and book into it. Or if you know you're internally motivated and maybe like your alone time in the gym, sign up for an online training program and follow that online, and maybe go to their events they put on every few months, and that's kind of like your social interaction there within the gym.
Yeah.
But it's kind of just acknowledging and admitting where you go, because as much as we want to be who we want to be, and I definitely think we can steer our lives to where we're going to be, a large part of who we are is genetic and played out. And if your mom and dad and grandparents and genetic and pointing you to, I am motivated by external factors, then use it.
Yeah.
Like, use a holiday, use a gym, use something, but then put them in your timeline throughout the year so you're constantly working, constantly going. Or if you're a psychopath like me, just your internal motivation will get you there. Like, it's weird you said
Yeah.
that. Obviously, I played sport, and you probably I sound like a good rugby player when you say it, but a failed rugby player. Like, I look back and be like, but I didn't make it professional, did I? So then I'm not very good. And I'm absolutely fine with that. And like,
Yeah.
when people around me be like, bloody hell, John, like, you were pretty handy. But in my eyes, I'm like, but I wasn't good enough. And that blunt honesty, I love. It's like, we'll put it in the business world here. It's when people say, oh, I don't track my numbers or I don't do anything like that. And the reason is because you might be afraid of what the numbers come back at you and say. You're like, oh, I thought I was doing really well at the trial lists and the amount of people coming in, the amount of members. But when you write them numbers down and they don't lie, it's like, this is where it's at. This is where we're at. And just be completely honest with where you're at and just accept it for where you're at. And you can't do anything about it at that moment in time, but you can make a plan going forward to get better. But if you put your head in the dirt and you're not realizing where you are, you haven't got that self-reflection piece, it makes it so hard to make any positive changes there. Yeah, I mean, just to circle back what we said at the start in terms of that praise, like, rugby wise for me, it kind of just petered out after a while when I realized it wasn't fulfilling me the way I thought it would do. There were numerous changes happen, and I got to a point I'm like, I just like coaching now and lifting weights and sprinting, and I'm just going to do that instead rather than actual play rugby and on Saturday, like, bloody travels and all that sort of stuff, shoulder
Yeah.
surgery, all that kind of thing, not making it, being dropped. But I do thank rugby, and especially growing up playing rugby, that just reinforce like that work ethic and hard work. And just, if I'm internally motivated by the team, by the leader, by the coach, by the organization, it's like I will bury myself
Yeah.
for this person. And then I've come out of the rugby world, gone into the business world, and I've been coaches in different organizations, different people, different places. And when I definitely know when I buy in, I buy in. Like, if I believe in the leader, if I believe in the organization, or I believe where it's going to go, it's like I'd bury myself for this.
Yeah.
And then if I don't, I'm not interested whatsoever. Like, I know I'm not interested whatsoever. And it could probably come across as lazy or like disinterested. And it's completely the latter, definitely. Like, it's just disinterest. Like, I know myself well enough by now, and probably just hopefully even know myself more in the future. As you know, you go older, you get a bit wiser. But if you know what motivates you, if you know what you're about, I think you can steer your ship just a little bit better.
Yeah.
And I love people who do things for themselves. And I'm going to do this because I want to. Like, I spoke to a friend the other day, and they were like, I want to be a whitewater rafting coach. I was like, that is incredible. Like, what's your plan? It's like, well, I'm a physio right now, but I want to be a whitewater rafting coach. And obviously, we live in Vancouver Island now, so that's a possibility. Like, you could do that. I'm like, I've got to get my qualification. I've got to do this, and I'm going to make a direct direction. That's what I'm working towards. I was like, that is incredible. Like, that is so inspiring. I just find it really inspiring when people be like, this is what I want to do, this is what I'm going to be, and I'm unapologetically myself. And the reason I think I like them people is because that's what I'm trying to become as well along the way. Like, unapologetically myself, and this is who I like, and this is what I like, and this is the direction I want to go. And, you kind of like give in to, well, I've got to go to this social obligation because this person said you've got to do this job because it kind of suits the narrative and whatnot. I'm like, I hate that because it's just lying. Because I'd never thought too much on like the afterlife too much. But you have one shot, maybe. I think so.
Yeah. Well, there's
And
no
it's kind of
guarantee
like,
either way, is there?
no
So why
guarantees to
fucking
like,
live like there's why live like there's another one?
just do what you want. Do what you want and have your hands up. And like, this is the type of person I am. I've got some great relationship with some members now, and they're so honest sometimes. But like, I fucking just gave up and had some cake. I was like, I love that because you're just honest with me. It's the ones, not even, not this, there's not no members or anything like that. But ones people you come across in life, like, oh, I did this because of this and did this because of this. I'm like, but you're lying to yourself. Like, don't lie to yourself. Like, don't please me. Like, I'm no one. Like, don't please me whatsoever. Just be honest with yourself and who you want to be, and that's totally cool. Like, part of it comes from that judgment from other people. Like, I hate people who judge other people. Like, if you want to hoe it up in the streets, like you hoe it up and you go for it, and you put your
Throw
hands
it
up and you're
back.
like,
Throw it
that.
back.
That's who you are, and that's what you like. That's what you like. That's totally cool. You
Yeah.
live your life. But yeah, don't. And I say that again, probably as a reminder to myself as who I want to be. Probably not the hoeing up in the streets part, but the just be who you want to be, and just ignore everyone else, because at the end of the day, you know, you could end your life and not have an afterlife, and like, I don't want to have any regrets. No regrets. If you ever seen that
No
movie, and
regrets.
you know exactly,
I know.
you're my people. If you know exactly where that movie quote comes from.
You're welcome in the afterlife, which is probably going to be hot for us. So you can come and join us with no regrets. But I think it's so important that I am guilty of this, 100%. Still am, still working on it. Something I work on is not being a people pleaser, not sort of, trying to keep people happy. Fucking, I've been subject to it, people will tell you. But I didn't like that in me. So I've not liked myself as a person over the years. And I'm not like, it's not a fucking cry for help or a sympathy card. It's just what I hope this podcast can be, and something that me and you are always with each other is transparent. And I've been in a position where I've not been happy with the person that I am. And a lot of that has come from people pleasing, chasing the wrong goals. But, like, I'm a fucking, like, I'm a stubborn, I'm pretty, like, I like what I like. And I'm learning to say no. And that has been, for me, one of the biggest tools in my toolkit to actually, and I'm still shit at it, but I'm a lot better than I used to be. If you'd gone to me, oh, do you want to go on holiday next week? And I'd be like looking in my bank and I'd be like minus fucking X. I'd be like, yeah, same. And that's just stupid. Like, and I've realised that, burying yourself for other people's gratification when you don't actually like who you are is fucking stupid, because guess what? You live with yourself more than you live with anybody else. And if you've got that relationship, that's the one you should be working on first and foremost, I think. Anyway, personally.
Yeah, mate. It's I don't know. It's a journey, because you look back and be like, oh, I was a shell of a person I am now. And I'll probably look back in the future and be like, I was a shell of a person that I am now. For me, that's that progression that we talked about at the start, and just slowly becoming the person that you want to be. And it's just a work in progress. It's by no means am I, or self-admittedly yourself, like the finished article, but hopefully one step closer today than we were yesterday, and so on and so forth as you go forward. It's been interesting. It's been interesting. I think by pleasing everyone, you please no one, including yourself. And it's so easy to people please and be that type of personality, especially for how you were brought up, your social interactions as a kid, for your teenage life, even early 20s and whatnot. To be like, oh, I'm in this way. And again, I said before, a large of it is genetic, and I definitely think it is, but a large part of it is also not genetic, and you can mold the person you're going to be. Like, you can't change yourself completely. You're not going to change your personality, but little traits here and there, like what type of person you are, what the habits you have and whatnot, you can definitely develop them. You've got to put yourself in the right place, whether that's community, yourself mindset wise, and I don't know, take that kind of like leap of faith, if you will, whatever that may be.
Nature versus nurture.
Hey, yeah, that's an interesting conversation, isn't it? Like,
Yeah, that's sort of where, it's a scary thought to think, oh, well, what we do has no sort of impact on the outcome. And like, if you live like that, I just can't I can understand why some people think it. And like, it's all set out. Everything you do is, it's meant to be, blah, 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 which is a reassuring thought that I've told myself a few times. But, I mean, that just screams to sitting there and being passive, which, again, going back to if you're happy with that, I'm not here to tell you that's incorrect. But for me personally, I'm like, do something about it. Try and do something about it. Like I said, create them habits, create them routines. Because you know, don't you? I think you know deep down, truthfully, you can get to that point in yourself and be like, I'm doing this, but I don't really enjoy it.
I don't know. Do you think? I don't know. The older I get, the more I'm like, never assume what people are thinking or what people, because we're so different personality wise. I mean, you find your group, and me and you are quite similar in personality wise, I think, but you just never know what's going through people's head. And we've all heard that from a kind of depression standpoint, but just in terms of like a motivation standpoint, how they see things, how they problem solve. And something that seems so obvious to yourself might be so obscure and difficult to someone else. And so, for example, related to my only area of expertise is probably the gym. When someone's like, oh, I just kind of like missed a whole training block. And in my head, I can't fathom not going to the gym. I just can't fathom. Like, it's been
Yeah,
ingrained into my life. I just can't fathom that. I just can't understand why. And realizing that's okay, and realizing not anyone thinks like me. Like,
yeah,
yes, about the gym, there's people similar, but in my whole 100% of my thoughts, no one thinks like me. I also think this is good for any aspiring coaches, because it's so easy for us to stand by and be like, just have your 5 a day or walk 10,000 steps and go to the gym, just put it in your diary. That's shite advice, because you're not the same person as the person you're speaking to. Do you know what I mean? Like,
it's cookie cutter, isn't it?
middle-aged Sally, who's had 3 kids, who hasn't been to the gym for the last decade, doesn't need to hear PT say walk 10k steps a day and put your gym in your timetable. There's so many tools out there, so much you can help this person with. And first and foremost, it's realizing they don't think like you. They don't think, like, the gym's not a passion. The gym's not even a habit. The gym's something they think they need to do in order to get healthy, because they want to actually live and grow with their kids. And it's coming back with that self-reflection piece, and having that self-reflection be like, oh, hold on. I can't pass judgment on anyone else. I can't judge anyone else for anything. They don't think like me. Do you know what I mean? Like, I live in a place called Victoria now, and lovely place, incredible place. And they've got a lot of homeless people, like more than Liverpool. Like, wait, for a place which has got like a fifth of the population. Like, we got a place like called Tent City, and you go past there, and you see the people homeless, and like these are like some typical homeless people that you might see, and you get some people like, hold on, why are they in a suit? It's like, oh, because they can't afford to live here, and they live in a tent and go to work. And this is not like suit and a boot and high end stuff, just like
Yeah,
a shirt and some pants and stuff like that, and a bag. And speaking to some people in the gyms, like, oh yeah, because they're like housing crisis and like cost of living so high here. But because the climate's so mild, no one wants to go to the rest of Canada because it gets to -40. And
yeah,
here it gets below zero, barely. So people live here and just do what they can. But the cost of living is just skyrocket. And it's understanding, like, you could assume that all homeless people are like, oh, they're just homeless, or like, drug addicts or whatever. It's like, no, this person's actually trying to pay bills as much as possible. They might still have like I know how it works, like a bank account or anything like that, but it's just not,
yeah,
I don't know, it's just not passing judgment on anyone and not thinking what someone's thinking. Do you know what I mean? When it comes from a coaching standpoint, of saying, oh, you can do X, Y, Z, is even before that step is understanding where the motivation comes from the person. Why is this person doing this? What motivates them? How can I tap into that? How can I kind of give them a framework to help them actually get better and achieve their goals, rather than thinking, well, I think like this, so everyone else thinks like this. And I definitely made those mistakes as a coach, probably still do, and just not having that self-reflection. But, oh, you could try this, this, and this. It's like, hold on, this is what I would do, but I'm not them.
yeah.
So this is not good advice. And I really like, the words escape me, something interviewing. Is it self-interviewing? Where you basically interview the person. So for example, you might come to me and be like, hey, John, I want to get in shape. I'm like, okay, what does that look like for you? And you say, well, I think it looks like blah, 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 blah. It's like, okay, why do you think that? Well, so because this, and this. Okay, take that away. What do you think is realistic? Well, I think I can do X, Y, Z here. Right, oh, fantastic. So if you think you do X, Y, Z, how do you think you can put that into your timetable? Or I could probably put it like this, but then this is quite hard. All right, do we need to do that? No, we don't actually, John. I'll take that away. Okay, so you can do X and Y then. Perfect. Do you think you can do that? Oh, I think I can do that. It's quite manageable. That's quite far away from what we thought we were going to do. Well, how do you feel? Well, I feel a lot better because I see a lot lighter on my timetable here and I can actually think I can manage that. Perfect. What I'll do is I'll check up on you in a few days to see if you've got it done. Perfect. In that conversation, what have I coached? I've said nothing.
No.
They've come up with their own game plan. They've set their own timetable. They've come up with their own restrictions. So they've reassessed their game plan and came up with a plan and executed. All I said was I'll check back on them. But I've learned
Guided them.
that's coaching.
Yeah.
Coaching's not 10K steps a day, do this, I'll see you later. That's not coaching. That's just looking off Instagram and regurgitating information.
Yeah.
And it's kind of learning those tools as you go and be like, all right, how can I help this person? Because I don't have the answers for them. They have their answers for themselves. And how can I get that out of
I
them?
love that. That's so, like, I've not even got words for it, mate. That was just such something that, you know, makes perfect sense. And I think you do see a lot of, like you said, and I'm probably guilty of it. I mean, I'm guilty of it. I've just said something along the similar lines. But it's very hard, isn't it? I think, to not get caught up in that sort of comparison and that regurgitation just through social media and things like that. So was that something that you said you might have been guilty of it prior? So obviously you're online now, your social media and stuff like that. You're seeing these people do this thing that you did and you don't like doing now. How is it frustrating being on social media for yourself sometimes and like looking at people who, that what you just said, mate, I'm sure people listen to that and be like, fucking hell. Wow. Because I was like, that's fucking makes such sense, but yeah, spot on. But like, is it hard for you as a coach with this sort of ethos that is sort of there's no ulterior motive? I think you look these days and there's a lot of people, and their only interest is money. They're not interested in the person. From what you just said to me, why I connected and resonated with it so much is because there is a genuine concern, a compassion for the person. And how does that feel when you see other people sort of exploiting people?
So there's many directions you can go from this. So I think when a lot of coaches just regurgitate information and start sprouting whatever, 10K steps a day, blah, 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 blah. I think a lot of it comes from proving your worth as a coach, or at least that's how I did it when I was younger. I was like, well, I want these other coaches to know I'm good. I want this person paying me money to know I'm good. So I'm going to give them the answer because I have the answers for everything. So it comes from a point of like, I'm going to prove I have the answers to everything. So I'm going to regurgitate information, just bang, there you go. That's coaching. And it's just, a lot of it is just growing your coaching age. Like I've been coached now for 13 years maybe. So I went to university at 19 and started coaching pretty much straight away in an internship program. So 19, now 31, 32. So it's 12, 13 years now. And it took me a long time to realize the good coaches don't say much. I was like, and I'm so thankful that I've had the route I've had because I've had so many good coaches and like, fuck it, I'll name drop. We'll dive in, mate. We'll dive in. We're only strapping, guys. We're only halfway through this podcast.
Fucking knuckle down, kids.
Bump my other meeting, so I've got an hour and 20 minutes, an hour and 20 to go. Anyway, long story short, so for a young age, I was in Sales Sharks Academy. So I got hands-on experience with like great coaches. And it's like, okay, that's interesting. Again, try and be self-reflective. Not because I wanted to be a coach at that point, because I wanted to be a professional rugby player. So I'm going to listen to what they say. Then I had the chance to go to Loughborough University, where the caliber of coaching and athletes there, I was like, oh my God. Like I thought I was an athlete. I'm not an athlete. Like I'm not an athlete because I'm witnessing people who've been to the Olympics and they're athletes. Like, they're just built different, very different breed of human being. Like, I'm a mashed potato and they're like some sort of chiseled gun. And just having that self-reflection, be like, hold on, that's what it takes. I'm like, I haven't got that. I like when I went to university, I was like, I haven't got that. Because I watched Harry Aiken's Aritari, who's just, Google it if you don't know who that is. This tank of a sprinter for GB. And I'm like, I'm not him. And like, the GB athletics team was there. The GB swim team was there. The rugby team played in the national leagues. Didn't even play in the university leagues. They played in the national leagues. And I was like, oh, this is what good players are like. This is what good athletes are like. And this is what good coaches are like. So again, it's like that self-reflection piece and be like, hold on. The really good coach over there had said 2 words the whole session, but they were fucking gold. And a lot of it came from us. And then I went to New Zealand and met the All Black strength and conditioning coach. And he didn't say much. And he reminded me that the basics will get you where you want to go. He's still the New Zealand strength and conditioning coach, Nick Gill. In fact, I invited him on the podcast, but he said to get back to me because the tour's going on or something like that. So hopefully I get to speak to him. And I went back to university and did another internship program. And I met an absolutely fantastic coach called Nick Jones. Did an internship with him. He actually got me a few jobs after, which was really cool. And I realized how clear he was at communication. I was like, that's another good tool, that. So far I've got like, great coaches don't say much. The basics are the thing you want to get well. Communication is absolutely key. And then you just learn from these coaches. There's an absolute fantastic coach in the gym I'm in now. So I do my in-person stuff as like sports performance here in Vancouver Island, and like the caliber athletes here, like 3 have already left to go to the Olympic training camp because they're going to cycle in Paris, like rowers, stuff like that. We have Steve here, who's absolutely fantastic. He'll never listen to this probably. He's a very like insular man, if you will. But I've been coaching him there's this off-season NHL camp and college camp. So like one of the players got drafted for the NHL last week. I was like, fucking hell, this is big time. This is training professional athletes in the off season. How fucking cool is this? And a month ago, it's like, hey John, I've got this group coming in. Do you want to help me? Yeah, 100%. I'll do it for free. Like, just get me in the room. And he was like, sweet, just do what you normally do. Just coach people. So we're coaching these people, and I'm like, the lads are fantastic. You know, watching Steve coach and having chats with him, just to see him manage a room and set expectations to sessions and how you deliver something, and more what's your environment like to coach. I was like, wow, mind blown. I'm in the podcast as well, listening to this like I interviewed Derek Hansen, like one of the world's best sprint coaches, goes to NFL teams to coach sprinting. He was like, your environment is the most important thing. Like when you're coaching speed, like not for drills, not what equipment you've got, like setting the environment to run fast, making sure people have enough time and rest, making sure intent is maximal, making sure you're given the right space to be able to express force. And I was like, wow, all these people along the line, you kind of just take a little bit from and hopefully like a sponge and then soak that up. Essentially what I'm trying to say is, without the coaches I've experienced in the last decade, I would be not a good coach. I mean, I still got plenty of runway to go and I still try and get better. But just listening to people, mentors, if you will, and taking things in and reflecting on like what the great coaches do, what the great people do, and all these great people kind of filter down, you kind of put into your own little framework, and you have that framework, makes the person you are today. Now, to rewind, me without all that experience was the coach who was like, do this, do this, do this. Because I was trying to prove my own self-worth. Like if I went from where I was when I was 20 and then put me in an off-season NHL camp, I'd be like, either wouldn't say a word because I'd be too shy, or I'd be like, I need to prove to people that I'm a good coach here. So I'm going to blurt out whenever I want. And that would just not serve the group well. But it's building rapport with the group, asking, you know, while you're off college, are you going to like get part-time work? Like how was getting drafted for Seattle? Like, it's fucking wild. Like the kid you get. Like stuff like having just little conversations and just being part of a journey. And being open to other coaches. Like, I'm just an assistant in that role. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm not leading the group or anything like that. I'm just there to
Yeah.
assist Steve, the head guy. But it's absolutely fantastic. And yeah, just having those people around you and having a little bit of self-reflection, hopefully, would just allow you to become the person you want to be, and not that kind of, I need to prove my worth at the start. It takes you, like we talked about this at the start, like when you're a host of a podcast, it's not about you, it's about the person. Same when you're a coach. Like, I had an interview with Sam Portland yesterday, the rugby speed guy, and he said, when you're a strength and conditioning coach, you've got to realize you're the back seat of the car. You're not the driver. You're not in charge of music in the passenger seat. You're not even the kids in the back seat. You're in the boot. And that's what your role is as a coach, as a strength and conditioning coach in an organization. Like, you're just there to make everything go forward and do what you got to do for your team. And it's kind of taking that ego out of it and allowing the person you're coaching to become the person they want to be and take them to wherever they want to go. You're problem solving at the end of the day. You're not the center of attention, you're not anything like that. You just got to problem solve for the person in front of you. Now, it's still in my mind that the original question, do you get frustrated when you look at social media? So there's two types of wrong information. There's misinformation and there's disinformation. So misinformation comes from a good place. It's that young coach who thinks they're doing right, but just misinformed. But they're open to, I'm going to get better at this. So, like, I'll give you an example. Like, I think I see a post the other day. It's like, you don't have to add weight to get stronger. And they were talking about like tempo and like reps and sets and, doing that sort of stuff, talking about different ways to progress. And the critical coach in me has been like, that's not really true, is it? Because the definition of strength is maximal force upon an object. And how you improve that is load. But they're trying their best. So I'll never DM someone and be like, hey, I think you're wrong here. Because one, that's a cunt move if you're being like a big-headed like twat and be like, hey, I think you should do this. Like, no, like, don't do that. And I was that person. I still probably put wrong stuff out now. I know I do. And in a few years, I'll definitely be like, well, that was wrong. I do it all the time. I did it the other day. And I was like, look back, I'm like, oh, I'd never say that again. Like, that was completely wrong. But it's having that misinformation piece and wanting to get better. So that coach will get better. They just got to take in other coaches, mentors, read loads, and just get better at coaching. And they'll turn around and be like, hold on, if I want to improve maximal force upon an object, which is strength, I have to improve my load. I can't do that with more sets or longer tempo or anything like that. You could argue with more reps and whatnot, but like, that's the nuance and that's what it's about. But then there's disinformation as well. And disinformation is you're purposefully saying something wrong for a financial gain or gain of some personal endeavor. And that is not great. That shouldn't be in the industry. And that's where you're like, this should be regulated to a certain extent. Like, it's the barrier to entry to become a personal trainer is so low. Like, you need an Instagram account and a gym membership, basically.
So low.
Yeah. And people are trying to put the best information out there. That's misinformation, and hopefully they'll get better. And then there's things like courses and great people out there that will teach you, and great podcasts out there which will teach you. But then if there's disinformation out there and they're just telling you to sell a product or sell something, I'm like, that's where it probably should be regulated. But I don't have the answer. Like, you can't regulate. Can you regulate? Like, people in multiple different countries, it's a billion dollar industry. And I'm just here to take a small chunk of the pie. Like, it's not it's not up to me. And again, like, no judgment on anyone. Like, I've got to run my own race. I'm too busy trying to keep my head above water to be like, this fucking person should be doing this or should be saying that. But that's not to say I've never been like that. Do you know what I mean? Like, I've definitely more been caught up with people who are successful and be like, well, how come I'm not successful? And, you have a pity party for like 5-10 minutes and be like, hold on, let's get something constructive out of this. Like, there's people out there who I know I've coached for longer and know I've got like higher accolades, if you will, of coaching, but they've got well successful business than me. So what are they doing better than me? Because if they're taking in more money from their business, they're doing something better than me. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's kind of like learning from them. So I don't know. Hopefully, it doesn't come across as like condescending or
I don't think it does at all, mate.
on your high horse. It's all just a learning opportunity and getting better, and it comes back to kind of those principles and who you are as a person. Knowing that, and like I know I'm governed by progression to an extent. I'm handcuffed by it. Like the thought of doing nothing for a week, I'm like gives me cold sweats. Do you know what I mean? Like my biggest problem is stopping rather than starting. So again, people like I have a problem starting. I'm like, I can give you a framework and gotta give that motivational interviewing to get the answers out of you. But I can't relate. And I know I can't relate. I've got empathy, but no sympathy.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
oh yeah, I get that.
Yeah, it's I don't know. Everything we spoke today, I didn't even realize this. It probably just comes back to knowing who you are as a person and what governs you and what principles you abide by, and realizing that, and then trying to change the course of your ship or wherever to head in a direction you want to go. Hopefully that didn't come across as too cringy. Quick side story, mate. Like sometimes I'm off in a roll, and at the time
I'm loving it, mate.
At the time, I'm like, that's a fucking boss story, that. And then I look back and be like, that was fucking cringe. And I'll tell you an example of this. So I got married, obviously, last year, didn't I? And obviously you have a few. I don't drink at all. But it was my wedding day, and I have a few. So I had a few. And I did the speech. And I thought I killed it. My best mate was crying. Like, there was other people crying in the room. And I was like, this is great, this. And then the next day, Dan said to me, she was like, hey, how cringe was your speech last night? And she was like, you were saying stuff like, you got to write your own chapters in life. And you got to, I don't know, something where you're half done and just saying these things. And like, her dad was like clapping me. My best mate was crying. I was like, I fucking nailed this.
People fucking bowing at your feet.
She's turning around to me and like, that's cringe, that, John. I was like, oh, don't remind me. So hopefully that didn't come across as too cringe then. I look back tomorrow and be like, what the fuck have I just said in that podcast?
Mate, I think that's a mad. Do you ever get that? Do you ever think, like, I will come off this and I'll be like, what the fuck did I just say?
Oh, mate, all the time. Like, it doesn't.
The fear sets in.
But I kind of like that because that's real podcasting. Do you know what I mean? Like that's just talking out loud, which I think is what people want when it comes to podcasting. I'm just trying to figure that out. Do you know what I mean? And sometimes I'm like prim and proper when I'm trying to do my interviews, and then when I realize it gets a bit more like this, I'm like, hold on, this is the golden bits right now. This is the golden bits right now. Hold on, since I'm on a roll. I'm going to regret this. Best advice for a coach is get good at this thing called a dab. Have you heard about a dab before? So you dab.
All I can think of is a dab.
No, not like our age dab. But where you like kind of go for that.
Yeah.
Like bring someone in. So you do that kind of like handshake into like that thing. Sorry for people listening to this. That was terrible descriptive language. Anyway, I was coaching this high school football team. If you want to coach high school football, forget about reps and sets. Learn how to dab everyone properly because you will lose so much respect by not being able to dab an 18 to 22-year-old like college high school football.
I think there's nothing worse than a limp handshake. Mate, when someone comes and they fucking hand you a fucking dead mackerel and they're like, "Aya," and you're like, "Ugh, I've lost instant."
Oh, mate.
Oh, like the hands are like clammy or cold, and you're like, what is going on?
I remember one time I handshake someone, and this was like when I was like a junior rugby player and we come to the first team in the team I finished off with. I used to be a junior player there, and then went away, blah blah blah, came back. Anyway, before I went away, young fella, I remember handshaking the head coach, and I went in for the handshake. But then he only got my fingers. I was like, well, I'm fucking not playing for this team, Ella. I'll see myself out. Yeah, mate. It's mate. Just be cool as a coach. Just be cool. Learn a lingo. It's
definitely.
Yeah. But it's about like, I know I probably hopped on about coaching. I think I always fall back into coaching because it's the thing I know the most. It's just those human communication skills, relating to someone, talking to someone, having an open conversation with someone, getting dialect out of them, comes with time. But that's probably the most important thing. Those soft skills, those soft communication skills of like holding a conversation, talking in between sets. That's the real bread and butter. Do you know what I mean? Like we can all learn reps and sets and read a book. We'll eventually get to what's good training, and there's such broad scope of what broad training is. But those communication skills are massive in terms of just being a good person. And again, that kind of relates back to some of the coaches I've witnessed in terms of just learning from them.
You can't coach some skills, I don't think. I don't think you can. I think you can practice them and get better at them, but I don't think there's any sort of material like you can do other than application to get better at talking to people or learning how to, navigate conversations and them soft skills that you refer to. I think the only way to learn is to make an absolute twat of yourself occasionally and be like, I'm never doing that again. Never doing that again. It's like when you put, you put a meme in a group chat and it's just the tumbleweed just goes, you're like, right, well, that is not the group for that one.
Yeah, but it's like what you said before. I know you find difficulty in this, but it's not beating yourself up over it. It's learning from mistakes and then moving on and being like, how can I get better here? Because if you beat yourself up, it's just not helping anyone. Do you know what I mean? Because if you beat yourself up, you're just going to stop the progression that you're going to do. But if you treat it as a literal learning curve and you're going to learn from your mistakes, what can I do better? Have that self-reflection piece, whether that is just writing it down or just, in your own head while you're squatting and just kind of thinking about things and relaying things a little bit better. That will just take you forward, because just punishing yourself to the point where you can't do anything is just going to stop you from where you want to go. I mean, I punish myself, but hopefully I do it constructive. I never praise myself, but I punish myself constructively to the point where it's not a decrement where I'm not going to do anything, but to the point where I'm learning from it and like, all right, let's implement this again and go again. But then my goalpost is always changing and always getting further away. So once you learn and redo that, it's time to redo it again and just go for it again. There's probably better. You've probably spoken and interviewed much more inspiring people and much more interesting people in terms of how they actually praise themselves and look after themselves and their mental health. But mate, I'm not the person for that in terms of, this is what I do or anything like that. Like in a meltdown a few weeks ago, a few months ago, in fact it was now, but in a horrible place because I was just working to the point where I was like, oh wow, I'm sleep deprived here, and living on an air mattress in a cave with a mouse.
In the Hobbit cave.
In a Hobbit hole, yeah, in a Hobbit hole. People are probably wondering, what the fuck's he talking about now?
What the fuck are these two bothered about?
I know, this is where it's turned from a podcast to we're just now speaking as regular people now. But yeah.
But what you were saying then about, sorry to interrupt you, about you talking, there's other people that have talked about mental health and self-improvement in more inspiring ways. I think to hear this from someone like yourself who, you're successful. I know you won't like me saying this and won't take it and it's the progress, but someone who is still fighting these battles and, has these struggles, it just shows that it's always there. There's no magic pill, there's no magic thing to get rid of it. It's just you either learn to manage it in your own unique way and carry on, or you get to a point where, like you said, you just keep beating yourself up and don't try to progress. So I think it's fucking super inspiring, that it proves that regardless of, how far you get, like you said, them goalposts just keep moving. Something that I can sort of relate to is I've been running a lot lately, and the sort of thing that just gets me through is just right, the next lamppost. Right, the next lamppost. If I think about that distance, if I look at my watch and I'm like, what, I've done 0.6k and I'm already blowing out my ass, I'm doing a 5k, I know for a fact I'd be like, nah, brakes on, we're going. But if I just think about that one little thing, that goalpost is obviously always moving, but it's just finding, the little increments, and for me, just having them little wins along the way. Now that's going to sound cringy. Oh,
mate, you look back at that. Welcome to my life. Fucking hell, cringe. Yeah, I've got plenty of cringe stories, and I've got plenty of stories where I'm like, oh, I could probably do that better. And it's kind of exactly how I just expressed it just then, like a big breath out and just like, could have done that better. Do you know what I mean? Like fucked up so many times. You kind of learn it and go on. And I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to navigate life. I don't know whether I need to be easier on myself, because if I'm easier on myself, I might be less relentless.
Hmm.
Do you know what I mean? Like that's my
Oh yeah.
that's my superpower. Like this is it. This is the grind. This is what we've got to do. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah, yeah.
you're working late at night, you're getting up in the morning, you're coaching, you're training, you're doing all this is what it takes. And sometimes I had a really good conversation with one of the physios who works here. He's a little bit more of a spiritual person than I am. Although I do like the spiritual side of things, but I can't go full spiritual. Do you know what I mean? Like I can't do fully. But they were explaining or expressing that they think a productive life and a happy life probably somewhere falls in between that kind of hardship and flow, where you're in a flow state where everything feels super easy, but you have that deep underlying hard work nature where you're going to get something done. Where if you were on one side, for example, flow, you might flow through life, no direction, enjoying it, but you might not get what you want to get out of it, or whatever those endeavors are. But on the other side of it, if you're grinding away and realizing you're not really enjoying the direction you're going, you might look back and say, hey, it wasn't really worth it, this. Like, it wasn't worth the grind. It wasn't worth the effort I put in. It wasn't worth the pain I put in. But then it's hard to get yourself out of that, especially if you've witnessed that growing up, especially if you've seen success from grinding and hard working. And once you get that bit of success from that, you just double down and be like, well, I'll just do more of this. But if you try and if you try and let go of the rope and be like, I'm going to go full flow here, I might lose the progression I've been working towards. And it's kind of navigating that battle there.
So this is a bit of a, I don't know how you'll respond to this, but so sort of just thinking then, you was talking about your relationship and sort of the progress and that, and how, you sort of see it as not maybe negative, but you don't necessarily see it as positive, the relationship that you have. Would you condone that in somebody else?
As in the relationship I have with progress, with life, with...
Yeah. Like if someone come to you and sort of said them things, would you be like, how would you respond?
Like that? Yeah. Like I've got nothing. Do you know what I mean?
That's fair enough.
I try hard at not passing judgments at what people are doing. Do you know what I mean? I'm like anyone, I'm human, and I'll be like, fucking this person, blah, 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 sometimes. But like, I try and remind myself, like, that's what's they're getting through life. And I don't know, it probably comes from like that motivational interviewing style again. Like, if I was like, fuck it, this is my best mate saying this, I start asking questions like, how's it serving you? Are you happy? Like, do you find fulfillment in that? And they might turn around and go full Hormozy and be like, yes, like I work in a cubicle for 12 hours a day and this is fun. Like, well, you have all the fun you want to have.
Yeah.
But if they turn around and be like, I'm struggling here, then that's kind of there. So it's kind of like, probably don't pass judgment, but be curious and like interview them. Be like, why is that the case? So like, someone asked me that, like, why is that the case? It's like probably got deep rooted insecurities that I haven't sorted out yet, which drives me to where I think I want to go. And I've had success being hardworking, so I'm just going to double down on it and just be hardworking. And yeah, it's caused a meltdown here and there, but as in the character from We're the Millers, no regrets. Like,
no regrets.
Because it's made me the person, the experience I've had, you know what I mean? And like, I wouldn't pass up those experiences. Like my latest experience, so I got married last year, came back to Canada. I was doing online coaching at the time. And I was like, I really miss being in like a sports performance environment. So like throughout my coaching career, I've been dotted around like universities, internships, stuff like that. And I've actually just missed it. And you know who's a big inspiration of that? He won't listen to this as well. But remember Tom King? Yeah. Came to Battaglia. Used to work at Liverpool Football Club for 5 years. Me and him actually met each other like 5 years prior to him turning up at Battaglia. He actually interviewed for the job I worked at, and we actually said no to him. And then he went off and done a PhD, and then worked at Liverpool. So like, what a career path for him. Worked under Jurgen Klopp, all that sort of stuff. And just seeing him work with his athletes out at Battaglia, I'm like, I'm jealous. That's cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool. That's high level thinking. That, do you know what I mean? That's high level problem solving. That's what I miss. And so I moved to Canada, and then I found this job like on Vancouver Island, which is about 7 hours away from where I was living at the time. And I kind of married at the time. You just moved back to your apartment. You've been married for 3 weeks, and I just saw this job offer for this performance specialist in this independent gym with like Olympians, all that sort of stuff. Checked them out. It's like, fucking hell, this is cool, this. I didn't really think about it. And then Dan, she was like, I don't know why she was looking at it, but she was like, have you seen this job? And forwarded to me. She was like, do you think I should do it? She was like, we've been talking about doing this for a while. You miss coaching. Give it a go. If you can do your build strong from it, then all the merrier. Had a conversation with the guy. He was great. He was like, come this weekend. This was on a Wednesday. I was like, sweet. So just drove 7 hours to this, caught a ferry, drove, went to this gym, coached Friday night, this new gym, coached Saturday morning, have a track. He was like, yep, come on board. And then 3 weeks later, I just, after being married for 6 weeks at that point, left my wife and moved to Vancouver Island. And I had to Airbnb for like 4 weeks, just bouncing around different places, getting the bus. I didn't have a car because I left it in where my wife is. And I was getting the bus, and I eventually found this Hobbit home, the one we were talking about before, which I'm not the tallest person, but the ceiling height there is 5'9". I have to duck under some but beams. Yeah, mate, you couldn't come in. Like, we have a mouse now as well. And my commute time was like an hour on the bus, a walk in an hour. And then I did that twice a day. And then was doing my Built Strong, which is a full-time job in itself. Then said yes to every opportunity, and then tried to keep on training as hard as I can. And that's eventually just led to a meltdown. And I'm like 9 months in now. Still don't live with my wife. Like, she's moving over next month. So we've been married. Secret to success in marriage, lads. Just move out. It's going to be great. I know you're getting married next year as well, so that's good advice. That.
I'll
move
pass
out.
that by Nick
Tell Nick
when we come off. I'll say, John said. But she won't bollock me if you say it, so that's fine.
But yeah, and I kind of like that what if moment. Do you know what I mean? Like, hey, this looks good. What if? And I've been working with NHL off-season people. I've been working with a high school football team. I like rub shoulders with Olympians, people going to Paris. I'm like, this is fucking cool, this. And it was just kind of just like, let's just jump and see what happens. And yeah, served me well. Just like, buddy, what's that graph? Like, fuck around, find out. And it's just kind of just see how it goes. No regrets.
It's a reoccurring theme in this podcast.
So like, we've been doing long distance. If you follow Instagram, sometimes I put photos up of planes, and because I'm traveling back to see my wife like every couple of weekends, and coaching throughout the week here, trying to build a business, trying to get strong as fuck, and just doing everything poorly.
But you're still doing it.
But still doing it. Yeah, still doing it. And it like caused me a meltdown like 2 months ago, and came out the other side of that a lot better, kind of managing my life a little bit better. Yeah, it's been fun, but like more to come. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's cringy as, but like this is a cringe moment coming out of me. But it's kind of just saying like, I just don't want to have a what if. Do you know what I mean? Like every opportunity,
don't die wondering.
Every opportunity I've had like that, I've tried to say yes to. So for example, I quit university in year 2. So I was 2 years into university. So I kind of like got let go of every team I went to, and I was in university for 2 years there. So I went to Sale Sharks, Bedford Blues. I was like, fuck, I'm just going to university. Played for university in the Bucks League. Great league. I'm in year 2. This like contract came out for New Zealand. I was like, hey, see you later. So I quit university. Went and lived in New Zealand and played Premier Rugby there. Not the Super 12 or not the NPC, the one below that. So it was like Club Premier. And dislocated my shoulder. I was like, fuck. Had to come back to England, get surgery. I was like, I might as well just go back to university. I was like, can I come back to university, please? So they let me in. But I had to pay the new paying fee, which was like 9K or 12K or whatever it is now. Finished that off, and then I got to my end of my playing career at like 26, 27, rugby. And I was like, I met this girl, now wife, and she had a one-way ticket to Australia. So we just started dating like 6 months prior. And I was like, hey, that sounds good. So I quit everything, quit the job, quit the rugby. I was going to quit rugby anyway, quit internships or university stuff. I was like, let's go to Australia. Then made Built Strong and was homeless for a while in Australia, which was fantastic. And did that.
Man, it's such a cool story. Like, and here is the product of fucking rubbing shoulders with Olympians, doing the shit you wanted to do.
Bags underneath the eyes, bad knees, terrible beard.
Great hair though.
Oh,
great hair and great tattoos.
I don't know about that, mate. I've got these things on my fingers now just for funsies.
I've seen them. I was looking at them. I was like, is that a coffin on his
finger? Got the old CNI and coffins.
No. Yeah. There's going to be some people being like, he's in the Illuminati. That's why he's successful.
Yeah.
No, you've got the old CNI. Mate, my stomach one, this one.
Yeah.
He was like, oh, mate, that's that Bohemian Grove owl. I was like, you what? He's like, that's that one that, you know, you do child sacrifices to and shit. I was like, it's not, mate. Just a fucking eagle owl that I thought was cool.
Yeah, mate. People ask me sometimes, like, what do your tattoos mean? It means I made a horrible mistake in my first one, so I had to get a big cover up, and I have spare cash for the rest of them.
Dollar bills, y'all. Right. I know you've got a meeting, and I've just noticed the clock. But before we go, I've got three things that I want to ask. One, I did ask people because I was like, what do I ask John? Because I asked John a lot of things, but I want to ask him something that wouldn't come from me. So I asked some people. So we've got a bit of a Q&A.
Curious this is new. Who you've asked. I'm guessing one's Nick.
No, it's yeah, these are lads I work with because, mate, you're a bit of a big deal on the Snake. People know who you are.
Mate, my 2K followers on Instagram will disagree with you.
Well, they are some of them 2K followers. So the first one was, what is there any sort of difference in attitude towards running a business in Canada, like your own business, than there was in the UK?
In terms of the day-to-day logistics, yes and no. I'll explain. No, nothing really changes. You're still running a business and you're still running a service, a customer service base, and you've got to make sure the product's good and the marketing is spot on. Yes, it's different because we're always trying to improve. So I've been in Canada for a year and a half. So if you ask me what my business looked like internally a year and a half ago, it looks way different now. So for example, we've just started paid marketing for the first time after 5 years. And that's a kind of worms that. I mean, I'm not sure who will listen to this, who does it. And hats off if you've been doing it for a fair few years. But it comes to a point where organic growth's really, really hard. Despite like we do our videographer and try and put good content out there and good knowledge and whatnot, but at the end of the day, when only 100 people are seeing it, it's like I can't try and grow a business here. Mm-hmm. So we try to do paid marketing. So trying to put like educational videos out for paid marketing and then retarget those those followers now for the 14-day trial, that sort of stuff, trying to figure out that. And just try and make it a little bit more smoother, should we say, the back end style of things, like Zapier integrations in terms of when people click something, they get an automatic email. We're a lot more streamlined in terms of our marketing plan. So each quarter, we break it down to kind of a reactive event, a retention event, and another R event. I got this again not from me, from Mike, my friend who owns Steel Habitat, now gym owner. And it's a fantastic 12-week marketing tool. Basically, we're going to do something every single month that's going to gear towards growth for the company. So, for example, one might be a seminar, which we're holding in 2 weeks. One might be a big mass marketing campaign or email campaign for past members to be reaching out and see if anyone's interested coming back. And one might be, say, like a webinar or something like that. And we just move through them monthly. And so it's a lot more structured in terms of the marketing campaigns. And I really like that approach because you're just pissing in the wind if you don't do that, I think. Because if you haven't got the structure, then how do you grow? So I've been tracking numbers for the business for the last like 4 years. I got into that pretty early because Mike was like, you just got to do it. You just got to face up. And like, if you've got 2 members, write down you have 2 members. Do you know what I mean? Like just face the facts here. So we write down everything, trial list, members, all sorts, like social media growth. We track every number. And then alongside that, we have a marketing plan. So every 12 weeks, I know exactly what we're going to do. So when me and Tommy have a meeting every single week, we're like, here's the plan this week. Here's the call to actions we're going to do this week. Here's the plug we're trying to do, whether that's the quiz, the seminar in this case, or the 14-day trial. This is what we're going to go for. And then we build out programs and make them a little bit better. So in terms of like the business looks different, it's the same process, if you will, of like product, market, that sort of stuff. In terms of a geographical location, I'm going to say not yet. Just because I've been here for a year and a half, and there's been a change in the business from going more from like a body aesthetic look to more performance look. So we've done that in the last year as well. And now I'm kind of in my own echo chamber of sports performance. Now you might be able to see that through social media and the videos that we do now as well. So it's probably more accepted here, but just because I'm in a hub of people who do that anyway. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Rather than like Liverpool's a very aesthetic base, I feel like, and now it's getting to hybrid training and running and all that sort of stuff. It's probably a niche for everything, actually. But yeah, it's probably a disappointing answer. The business has changed a lot in terms of how smooth it is, but the actual logistics of what you got to do for a product and a customer service product, it stayed relatively the same.
Another caveat on that, which great answer. I'm sure he'll be thrilled with it because that's what he was looking for. Was how is the sort of reaction of speaking to just somebody and being like, what do you do? You know, I have my own business. Is there a difference in reaction in the UK than that of Canada? Because there's this perception of like everything's fucking stellar in like Canada and America. It's like, you go, man. Is it like that? Or
to be fair, there's a lot less people here where I am doing online coaching. Liverpool is like a fantastic place because there's so many people out there. There's so many collab opportunities. There's so many coaches you can talk to who are doing the hybrid model of in-person coaching online or just online and whatnot. And it is absolutely fantastic. But here, there's not many people who are doing that. I'd say here, the accessibility to sports performance is a lot higher. Do you know what I mean? Whether that's because I'm just in a sports performance private facility where they come here anyway, and I'm just in an echo chamber. I'm sure that's the case, but it just seems people are like, "Wow, you run your own business? That's incredible. What that looks like." But in the UK, in Liverpool especially, there's a lot of people doing the same thing. So I think it's more normal in Liverpool. There's definitely, say, a bigger pool of coaches and online coaches to pick from compared to here. At the end of the day, you're still trying to market and add value where you can and carve your own kind of corner of the pie, if you will. It's the same sort of thing here. But yeah, I think the gym culture in Liverpool is far greater than here. Greater is in like, yes, it seems condensed market, but also there's a lot of customers. There's a lot of people walk around the gym, walk around the streets in Gymshark here in night gear, gym leisure wear and whatnot, where they want it.
Cultural.
Yeah, it's a lot more cultural. While here, it's hiking, it's camping, it's a bit more hippie-esque. So I'm like, hey, how about this Power Build program? They're like, yo, man, I'm just going to do some mushrooms in the forest. I'm like, all right, not my target audience, okay? But then
don't do that. Don't clean and jerk and do that.
Yeah, and then but then again, in the gym I'm at, just attracts the people who cater for anyway.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm sure he'll be very happy with that. So, last two, because I realise that I'm keeping you and I don't want to keep
honestly,
you.
mate, I'll take our time here because my next meeting is just cancelled. So,
brilliant.
we'll go to
last two, though, I promise you. But these could take a while. So, 3 habits that you would suggest to a client, a friend, someone that are like, if you was like, these are the top 3 habits that I say you need to make, progress, blah, 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 whatever in your life, what would them 3 be? Top of your head.
So, I don't know, because that's like advice, and like, I'm not great at advice, to be fair. I can just say my own interpretation, but I do have a tick list of 5 habits I do every single day that I stick to every single day. And there's 3 C's, a T and a learn in that. and I literally have a sheet of paper and I knock it off every single day. I tick it off. That's how much of a loser I am. One
No, that is. I'm so
is
excited about this.
first C, coach.
Yeah.
I want to be an exceptional coach. Like maybe it's one day at the Olympics, maybe it's with a professional team, maybe it's doing exactly what I'm doing now and realizing I actually was at the destination all along. But if every day I coach, I've done a good job. I've learned how to coach. I've done more coaching. I've got another hours under my belt. Number 2, C, is create. Have I created a podcast, a post, an email? Have I created some sort of value I can put out there? Third C, connect. Have I connected with a new potential customer or podcast guest? Have I done that? They're my 3 C's. T, have I trained that day? Take that off.
I knew that was coming. I knew as soon as you said T, I was like, it's got to be that.
And then L, the last one, is learn. Like, have I listened to a podcast? Like, I started this probably 2 years ago, but I buy notebooks and I don't journal my feelings. Gay. I'm joking. You do whatever you want to do. You would. I hope people realize, because sometimes I think I come across quite serious in my content, but literally I'm an idiot. Like, I hope people realize that. Like, no harm. You be gay. That's totally cool. Anyway, long story short. So I write it down, like a page of notes of like, it literally could be like carbohydrate metabolism. Write that down. I will learn about a coaching model. I write that down. And so, you know, these one-on-one podcasts I have, I just literally pick a page and just read it.
That's such a good idea.
And do that. So I'm now my second like hardback book of like notes I've taken through the years. And I started 2 years ago, pretty much when I started my masters, because I didn't want to put it on my computer because I'll never read it because I hate reading from the laptop.
Yeah.
And I revised by just writing it down. So I just write that down. So yeah, coach, connect, create, train, learn, do them 7 days a week. Maybe not on a Sunday.
Day of rest.
God's day of rest.
Right, last one. Which I'm interested. I've been excited to ask you this one. If there's a routine that you've done or a habit that you had in the past, which one would it be if you brought it back into your everyday life, and why? I think I said that really shit.
No,
that makes sense.
I completely understand what you meant then. I think I was a pretty dismal human being, like at the start. So like, I'd bring nothing back. I mean, the stuff I want to implement now, and I really would like to implement. So
the top thing you want to implement?
Sauna. I wish I had an everyday sauna. One, yes, because of possible heat shock proteins and like the ability to build muscle in the long run, possibly.
Suffering.
But yeah, I just really like the sauna. I really like it. I want to say cold it, but I don't want to jump on the wagon because so many people do it. And
join me on the wagon.
Yeah, to be fair, I love a cold it, but I live right by the ocean. To be fair, so like I do dip in that every weekend when I get a chance.
I remember you putting something on Instagram when it was like, what, -8 and you got in a lake?
Yeah, mate, I fucking love it. I love pain, don't I, though? So, like yeah, I'll do it. It was New Year's Day in Canada, -30. Yeah.
That was me underselling it.
No, I lied there. That was a lie. It got to -30, but on the day of a dip, it was like -8. Yeah, you are completely right there. Before I, make myself look like a big shot.
Hof.
Yes, not Wim Hof. Yeah, sauna is probably the biggest one. If I could bring a sauna, and to be fair, I wish I read more. I've got Audible, and I smash a book out, and then I listen to like a bunch of podcasts, and then I'm like, oh, I kind of want to read. I kind of want to do so much. It's finding it hard to fit it in.
There's not enough time, is there?
No, like I want to read every book I can get. So I'm actually working my way through the Chris Williamson. You know, he's got a book list. No. He's got a free download book list, 100 books you should read before you die, and it's actually gold.
Link me that. I'll read that.
It's very, very good, and I've been working my way through that slowly. But because I listen to a lot of podcasts as well, and like webinars, it's hard to fit it in. But it goes into like kind of that learn day. So if I do something, I've taken it off, I'm good to go. But the thing about that is that what helps me is that it could be as small as anything. Do you know what I mean? Have I read a quick article? Have I listened to a podcast for 30 minutes, something like that? And that counts. Yes, I've done that. Have I done a bit of training? I've got some bum knees now. But have I done, like, after this, I'm going to do a CrossFit style workout because I got fucking tendonitis in my Achilles and my knees. I'm just gonna sit on a bike and do push-ups and dips until like I'm fucking blue in the face.
Yeah.
Anyway, that counts as it's going to be as small as big as anything. It just takes kind of ticking those lists off.
Love it.
But I'm very
Right,
process driven. So like, if you haven't got that already,
I'm going to say, I think you don't need to clarify that. I think we've got that to a T.
have you got this thing called process driven? Have you heard of that before?
I like to write things down.
Mate, this has been class, sis. You were about to wrap that up. Mate, this has been class. Thank you very much. Because, like, I've never been a guest. I've been a guest on 2 podcasts before. A friend called Steve Cuthbert. He's got the Strength Chat podcast, and we just talk about training, which has been absolutely fantastic. But I've never really talked about my own endeavors, one, because I think I'm a boring fuck. But I don't know. It's kind of like look at me.
It feels a bit narcissistic, doesn't it?
Yeah, it feels narcissistic. Like, hopefully this came across well, mate, because honestly, this is the only podcast I've done where I've spoke about my own thoughts and feelings, and you make it super relaxing as well. Like, mate, you're a good podcast host. So this was enjoyable. This was great. And just like a regular conversation that we have, this was literally what we talk about. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, this is just what we talk about. We talk about habits.
Our usual 2-hour catch-up, which it literally is regular.
Like, that's what I mean. Like, I did message you earlier on. I was like, hey, mate, do you want to move this tomorrow because I have a meeting? Because I know we can just not look at the clock, and before you know it, it's 2 hours down the line. And mate, this has been the longest podcast I've ever been involved in whatsoever.
Mate, it was so good, and I'm only cautious of going full Rogan on people. Mate, in a 5-hour podcast.
We could literally go for another hour if we wanted to. Like, easy.
We're gonna do it one day.
Easy.
We'll just book it out. I mean, if you're back when you like ever come over, yes, that's what we'll do.
We should do it in Reveal. What's Dave's new? Mate, when you posted the picture of that, I was like, because I spoke to Amy last week. She was on my podcast, and fucking hell, Amy's class. And she said she went there as well, and just like the scene's incredible. It's got the hot coal and meditation. I mean, the podcast room is unbelievable.
Yes, we'll definitely do this again because the list in which I wrote, I have not asked one question.
Have you not?
Well, that's a lie. The last 3 questions I asked were the questions that I had wrote down, but nevertheless, I didn't want to go off the list. The list is as like a precautionary matter, which I knew I didn't need, so which is why I didn't really write one. But mate, I thoroughly enjoyed that. That did not feel like an hour and 57 minutes.
I know, mate. Thanks, Mom, for listening to this.
Yeah, thanks, Mom. Thanks, Dad.
Literally
Nick, thanks for dropping in and out.
Yeah. Hey, mate, Dan won't even listen. Dan won't listen to anything I say. Like, she's like, you're fucking cringe, you, mate. Literally, she tells me.
You've done such. You've scarred her from the wedding speech.
I had no regrets. That was a class wedding speech.
No regrets. I think that's going to be the title of this podcast.
That'll be a good title, yeah.
Number 11 with John Cunningham. No regrets.
Class, mate. I'm interested to hear who. We'll wrap this up and we'll talk off air for another hour.
Yeah. It'd be like 3 a.m. But yeah, man. Before you go, link people where they can find you.
Bill Strong Online Coaching. And when's this going to come out, mate? Is this next week?
Next week.
Oh, sweet. If any of you guys want to come to a seminar, we're doing a plyometrics for performance seminar, and Tommy is the best coach in Liverpool. That's gonna. He's incredible.
Let's ruffle feathers.
He's absolutely fantastic. So that's going to be held at my lab. Fantastic gym. Joe owns that. Incredible space, and that's going to be on the top of my head. Sunday the 27th, 8th. Look on the Instagram. It's a free seminar we're putting on. Tommy's an incredible coach. You'll learn that. I mean, I'm going to do one if you're here in Canada on the Thursday for nutrition for sports performance. So looking forward to host them in the next few weeks. And if you want a program, yeah, cool, we'll definitely do it. But do whatever you want. No judgment here.
I will, as a previous person on them programs, the GOATs. Don't miss out.
I appreciate you, mate.
Appreciate you, mate. I appreciate your time. I appreciate your wisdom. And yeah, can't wait for our 1 hour off-air chat now.
Let's go. This is the real podcast, guys.
This is a real shit.
This be behind the Patreon wall.
Yeah. We'll put just for one coffee a week, you can listen to this. Peace.